A young man named Armin arrives at a cafe with his girlfriend. Out of nowhere, a stranger sits down at their table, thrilled to recognize Armin. The man quickly phones his daughter, proudly telling her he's just met her fiancé. Though strangely, Armin already has a girlfriend sitting across from him. Embarrassed and cornered, Armin bolts from the scene before things escalate. Meanwhile, another young man, Tursun, returns home, where his wife Alina is waiting eagerly. He cheerfully announces he's bought a present for their wedding anniversary. Alina's eyes light up, imagining a car in the driveway. But instead, Tursun unveils a brand new washing machine. Her excitement fades. Soon after, Tursun notices their shared savings jar is empty. Alina casually explains she spent it on a fancy dress, and adds that her friend's husband surprised her with a trip to Europe. Annoyed, she then sends Tursun off to take out the trash. At the same time, Armin calls Tursun, who pretends in front of Alina that his friend is jealous of their new luxury appliance and suggests she prepare a nice meal for them. Alina, however, compares him again to her friend's husband, who spends his evenings in stylish cafes instead of fussing with chores. Irritated, Tursun heads out with the trash, only to discover Armin hiding between the dumpsters. Armin begs for a place to lie low, but knowing Alina's mood, Tursun suggests they escape to a cafe instead. The two flag down a taxi. On the way, Armin recounts his awkward meeting with the father of the woman who believed she was his bride-to-be, while he had other relationships on the side. Tursun warns him that it's time to grow up. After all, he himself is married, has a 25-year mortgage, and just invested in a washing machine. Realizing he slipped out without telling Alina, Tursun calls her, bragging about their amazing appliance. But Alina snaps back, telling him to just marry the washing machine, then hangs up. Suddenly, traffic comes to a halt. On the roadside, they notice a bright pink car with a young woman struggling under the hood. She asks for help, but the guys poke fun at her driving and drive on. Moments later, a police patrol pulls them over. It turns out driver's license expired long ago. The car is ordered to be towed away, leaving the trio stranded on foot. As they try to hail another ride, the very same pink car rolls up, now working, but this time as a taxi. But seeing their helpless faces, she decided to make an exception. At that moment, Tursun remembers his wife, and Armin, unable to stay quiet, admits that they had overheard what Alina said earlier, so there's no point pretending his marriage is perfect. The friends eventually agree that most of their troubles seem to start with women. Armin daydreams about a world where girls don't have protective brothers or strict fathers. Tursun sighs, thinking again about his wife's friend's husband, who always seems to overshadow him. Suddenly, their driver Sophia, amused by their talk, playfully offers to take them to a place where only women exist. Sophia waves away their payment and wishes them good luck before driving off. Tima slips away while Armin and Tursun step inside and freeze in shock. The bar is filled only with women, and the entire room erupts in cheers at the sight of them. Drinks arrive from every table, and the waitress announces that everything is free for them. They can simply relax and enjoy. Armin, stunned, pulls out his phone and notices all of his male contacts have mysteriously vanished. Tursun sparks laughter when he politely asks the staff to switch the TV to a men's football match. The waitress chuckles and explains there are only 3 men in existence, so a soccer team is impossible. Tursun nervously asks where the men's restroom is. The waitress blushes, apologizing that such a facility doesn't exist. They never expected men to visit. The two rush outside in disbelief, realizing they've somehow entered a world ruled only by women. Just then, Tima reappears, grinning, and points out that even the police officers here are female. Sophia returns, curious at their shock. "Isn't this what you wanted? A world without men?" she asks. She explains they will spend one whole day in this paradise, where there are no nagging husbands, brothers, fathers, or male officers, and that the 3 of them are now considered rare, almost legendary. However, she warns them they cannot take photos or record videos. Those are the rules. As a parting gift, Sophia hands back the keys to Tima's taxi, which has magically appeared nearby. In this place, his car cannot be towed. He's the only male driver. The friends cheer, though Tursun looks uneasy, thinking of Alina's reaction if she found out. Sophia reassures him that back in their world, only a second will pass. No one will notice they are gone. Armin suggests they enjoy it while they can, as such a chance might never return. The 3 hop in the car, cruising the streets as women wave and swoon at them. Tima starts plotting the kind of fares he could charge here, while Tursun insists on going home, despite Armin's protests. Suddenly they are stopped by a strict-looking female officer, She demands Tima step out of the car. He obeys, bracing himself for trouble, but instead, the officer suddenly leans in, kisses him, then dashes off, apologizing for overstepping her authority. The trio end up at a lively lounge where they dance wildly, enjoying all the attention around them. The group keeps drinking and celebrating until a guard taps Tima on the shoulder and asks him to step outside, saying someone is looking for him. Curious, he heads to the entrance and spots Olga, the police officer. Startled, he quickly ducks away and rushes back in, telling the others that the traffic cops somehow found him. Tursun, already worried, agrees that it's best to leave and finally head home. Armin, on the other hand, insists they drop Tursun off and continue their night until sunrise. But when the waitress brings the check, their excitement fades. It turns out that while men don't pay for their own food or drinks, they're responsible for covering everything the women ordered. The bill is enormous. Armin suggests stalling until their 24 hours are up, but just then, they notice men appearing all around them. Panicked, the three bolt out of the club where Sophia is already waiting. She explains the main rule of their visit. For one full day, they cannot turn down a request from any woman. If they refuse, they'll be trapped forever in a world where only men exist. Unfortunately, they already used up their one mistake. The friends scrape together their remaining cash, barely covering the cost of the evening. As they leave, Tima spots Olga leaning against his car. She smiles and invites him for a late-night drive, and since refusal isn't an option, he accepts. By morning, they part ways. Back in his own home, Alina greets Tursun warmly, offering to cook him whatever breakfast he wants. She promises to make his day special and even suggests inviting Armin over for dinner, knowing it would cheer her husband up. She calls Armin and asks him to bring spices for the meal. Armin hesitates, but eventually agrees. On his way out, however, an elderly woman asks him to carry her heavy bag upstairs, and he has no choice but to help. Meanwhile, Tima switches on the radio and hears a woman advertising a town fair. Annoyed, he turns it off, only to notice the women around him slowly changing into men. Terrified, he realizes the truth. Every single request must be fulfilled, no matter how small. Meanwhile, Armin ends up brewing tea, scrubbing clothes, and cleaning the floors for the elderly woman. Tursun, in contrast, is enjoying a feast made by Alina. Feeling playful, he gives her light-hearted tasks, and she cheerfully brings him slippers, straightens the place, and even crawls around pretending to be a puppy. But when he tries to snap a picture of her, his phone suddenly shuts down. Alina feels hurt by his reaction, thinking he isn't satisfied. Tursun comforts her and begs her not to make any more requests for the rest of the day. She nods but immediately suggests they go out somewhere since they rarely leave home. He reluctantly agrees. At the same time, Armin finishes cleaning and notices the old woman asleep, so he quietly slips out. While hiding in a park, a young artist calls him over, asking for help moving her easel. To his surprise, she's the same waitress who had brushed him off at the bar. This time she smiles warmly, explaining that she hated that job but loves painting. Meanwhile, Tima once again crosses paths with Olga on the road. He follows his GPS, but Olga tails him aggressively, demanding he pull over. Each time he slows, the female voice on his GPS orders him to keep moving. The chase drags on until Olga finally corners him, forces him to stop, and insists he accompany her to the station. Elsewhere, Tursun and Alina relax at a cafe. Tursun mentally calculates how much it would cost him if he had to pay for all the women present, when suddenly a dispute breaks out. Their table was reserved. Lena suggests leaving, and Tursun gladly agrees. Meanwhile, Armin strolls with Diana when a group of girls ask him to fetch their kite stuck in a tree. He climbs up, retrieves it, but loses his footing and falls. Concerned, Diana takes him to a cafe where they laugh, share stories, and start to bond. Just as things feel perfect, Diana begins to flicker strangely, and Armin remembers the spices he promised to bring. He apologizes and rushes off, assuring her they'll meet again. At the same time, Olga drags Tima to a hotel. Meanwhile, Armin is suddenly lured by a promotional offer and ends up in a beauty salon, where he's forced to undergo every possible treatment. Tursun brings Alina to their favorite park, the place of their early dates, and buys sausage rolls like he once did long ago. Tima, desperate to escape Olga's relentless affection, locks himself in the bathroom. He lights a napkin on fire, setting off the sprinklers and forcing an evacuation. Meanwhile, Armin calls Alina to tell her he finally bought the spices, but she tells him to come another day. Relieved to have fulfilled the task, he hurries back toward Diana. Unfortunately, Armin bumps into the elderly woman again. and this time she asks him for a shoulder massage. Reluctantly, he agrees. Just then, Diana walks into the apartment. She turns out to be the old woman's granddaughter. The two leave together, while the grandmother calls out behind them, reminding them not to get too close. Meanwhile, Tima tries hiding from Olga in an elevator, but during the fire alarm the doors lock, trapping him, and she catches him again. Later, at Armin's request, Diana paints a portrait of herself. She's puzzled, pointing out that a simple photo would be easier. Armin can't reveal the truth and simply says they might never see each other again. Upset, Diana feels rejected when he refuses to kiss her because of the grandmother's warning. With sarcasm, she tells him to go ahead and jump off the roof. Armin climbs to the edge and begs her to stop him, but she stays silent. Suddenly, a little girl below screams for him not to jump. Armin steps down, relieved, and explains to Diana that it's part of the rules. Unfortunately, she only hears the word game, feels insulted, and storms off. Armin takes the half-finished painting with him. Later, the friends regroup and share their chaotic day when Sophia arrives. She explains that only those who rode in her taxi can return to their own world. Suddenly, Armin jumps into her cab, starts the engine, and speeds off to find Diana, determined to bring her back. The problem is, he doesn't know where she lives. They end up at the grandmother's house, who leads them to Diana's apartment. But Diana refuses to come out. From the street, the grandmother shouts her praises of Armin, yet Diana insists it was all just a trick. Armin begs her to trust him, but she refuses. The group returns to Sophia, who angrily refuses to take them back and prepares to leave alone. Armin apologizes, swearing he meant everything, even offering to stay in that world forever. Sophia remains firm, but when the men sincerely admit their mistakes, she finally agrees to take them back. The taxi drives through the glowing streets, and soon they find themselves back in the normal world. They thank Sophia, but she pretends not to recognize them at all. At that moment, another female taxi driver asks them to help push her stalled car, and instinctively, they agree. Tursun buys flowers and returns home to Alina, while Tima hugs a female officer on the street. Armin searches everywhere for Sophia, revisiting the places they went in her world, but never finds her. Later, Tursun sells the washing machine and takes Alina back to their favorite park. Wanting to make Alina happy, Tursun surprises her with sausage rolls and plane tickets to Paris. Tima retrieves his car and unexpectedly runs into Olga, who sparks a light-hearted chat about his beloved vehicle. The two begin to connect. Armin, meanwhile, visits an art academy to have Diana's portrait completed. To his amazement, he sees Diana herself working there. They finally reunite and become a couple. During the credits, Tima takes Olga to a hotel. The film stands out for its sweeping cityscapes and countless striking women on screen, though the jokes don't always land.